All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and thank you for joining us here at Where Am I to Go podcast. Before we start our show today, there's a couple things I would like to bring to your attention. First of all, we have a Facebook page where we post lots of pictures of places we've been and things that we've done, and also other little things that people might be interested in knowing. We also have an email address at whereamitigopodcast@gmail.com. If anybody has any ideas, suggestions, or thoughts about our program, please let us know. I'm more than interested in hearing comments, feedback, and that type of stuff, and it will also help to make a better show. And lastly, we are on Patreon. If anybody's interested in joining us there and helping us along with our adventures, we would be more than happy to have your assistance. Now, thanks again for joining us today, and let's get on with the show. Today we are in Blackwell, Oklahoma, and I am with Melissa, and we are at the
top of Oklahoma Historical Society Museum.
The top of Oklahoma, and I guess that's because we're in the top of Oklahoma, just south of Kansas.
Yes.
And this museum, I walked through the front door, it is packed. They have all kinds of things here, and the museum had a few things that really intrigued me when I was looking at the website. We'll see when we get to that. They have a tornado museum in here and some of that. That's kind of what I was highly intrigued with. But there's so much else to see here that I think we're going to be intrigued for the whole podcast.
Good.
Anyway, Melissa, what is there to do around Blackwell?
Well, in Blackwell, we are an hour from the majority of the other large towns. We're a small town, but we're an hour from Oklahoma City, hour to Enid, hour to Wichita. So the things in Blackwell to do, we have a museum, which is where you are today. The building was built in 1911 and finished on Easter Sunday of 1913. They used to light up the building. We were called the Electric Park Pavilion. There are pictures all through the museum and history about the actual building. The building was used kind of like a civic center or a welcome center would be today.
And that's what it was built for, is a civic center?
It was a grand leaded up building. They had over 1,000 lights on the roof, flags up on the roof, lights out front. They lit up the fountain, walking paths, different things were done at the museum. They would do boxing, wrestling, concerts, plays, musicals. The high school used it as auditorium for graduation. Band and choir would rehearse here. We also had the Women's March to Vote was held down our main street and came into the pavilion, and they celebrated the right for women to vote. And a lot of our early matrons, which were the Masons' wives, they were part of the march. So I featured that on our Facebook page about some of the women that were very instrumental in the building of Blackwell, as well as many rights for women, as well as opening up the library, helping with the different churches, Girl Scouts, many civic things the women did. That museum also houses the smelter, which was a business here, the glass plant, the foundry, the flour mill. You can walk through and see rooms set up as the old-time kitchen, living room, parlor, and dining room. We have things from the old post office, doll collection, Santa collection. We also have antique toys. So there's a lot to see at the museum. We also have barn quilts, which were done in like the 1800s. The women would quilt and the men would paint and put barn quilts on their barn. And so we have now added that to Blackwell. There's a group in Blackwell that does barn quilts. The museum has 4. We have the original barn quilt, which you can see as you come and go. We have a land run barn quilt that celebrates the run of 1893. We also have a tornado barn quilt, which was added this year in 2019 to 2020 for to celebrate or to remember and honor our tornado victims. We also have an original barn quilt, the Jewel of the Shikaski. So there are tours throughout the town, and we have the maps and prizes and things like that for anyone that wants to tour Blackwell and do the geocaching for the barn quilts.
You geocache also?
Yes, for the barn quilts, yes.
Dang, it does not sound like we have much to see here. Or do. Now this building, you said that it was lit up, it was a civic building. This building is unbelievably cool. When you're driving through Blackwell, you can't miss it. It has been renovated in the last few years because it looks so sharp, so clean. It does not look like a 1911 building, but it has an arched front and 2 wings off to the side. It's just a gorgeous building.
Thank you. Well, actually, we have a new roof. The city got us a new roof, new stucco, new brickwork. They refurbished the fountain. So a lot of new things have been done in this year. Prior to that, it was done in the 90s. Prior to that, in the 70s. It was turned into the museum in the 70s.
Okay.
And there is a board of directors that governs the museum, but we are lucky enough to be housed in the old Electric Park Pavilion, which is provided by the City of Blackwell.
Cool. And did they keep all the lights and stuff to where you can still light it up the way that it was?
The majority, yes. We have lights in the window, lights up front on the light post. We do have the one eternal light in the front that we decorate for different holidays and seasons. We also have the old curtain that hung across the stage when there was a stage in here with theater seating. We also have a train room, a music room, Native American room.
Does this museum end?
I don't know.
Well, as we walk into this gallery, we come into the. I'm assuming this is your postal display.
This is the post office.
You've got an old post office with the bars on the teller windows and delivery slots and all of that kind of stuff. Very nicely done. A little scale. Some pictures of the old postmasters.
Then we also have our bank section.
Okay, with a bunch of money bags and things that the banks used to hand out. I don't know, I mean, they all have pens now, but there were lots of toys, bags.
Glasses, yes.
Banks, little coin banks that look like pop cans or whiskey barrels or different things like that. And I haven't seen banks do that in years. I know I had some of that stuff when I was a kid.
We also have these that the money went through the slot back to the teller. They use these at the bank, and you put your money in it and close it. They also look kind of like some of the people might have seen at like Anthony's or some other stores where they put it through a slot and it runs up into the bank or into the area where the teller can get the money. We also have the old coin changers.
Like for the car hops.
Yep, for like car hops.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are cool.
The stamps. We have old pictures of the bank. We also have, here is where Amelia Earhart came to Blackwell.
Oh,
and
really?
She got the key to the city. And Amelia Earhart came and she was pulled over for speeding in her car. And they went in front of the judge. And so she had to go to the bank and get a cashier's check or money to pay the judge. And then they heard about it, so they gave her the key to the city.
Now, she also has a place in Wyoming, not far from where we're at, in Meeteetse. She was building a cabin up in a place called Kerwin that's a ghost town now.
Cool.
So it's kind of interesting to see Amelia Earhart here and then also where I'm from. And then you have a hair wreath here.
Yes, our hair wreath is inside our home, like into the dining room in the old days. So we have like the old table, the old sewing machine, the old dressers, cupboards and dishes. But our hair wreath is in here, and it was a fundraiser that someone did. And they all donated their hair, and then they had an auction and sold the hair wreath to the highest bidder.
When did they do this?
This actually came from the Bremen, Oklahoma area, which is about 10 minutes from us. And it would have probably been done in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Okay.
So it's very old, and it's framed, and you can see that they actually made flowers out of each person's different hair.
Now this is really interesting. There's a hair museum in Independence, Missouri that I went to. Just blew my mind. And I hope to be able to get back there and do a podcast at some future time. But people, you need to go look up hair art on Google and get some images. The detail with the flowers and the acorns and the little petals and all of that stuff is so intricate and so cool. And all the different colors of hair make for such a neat display.
Yeah, because you see gray, you see black, brown, auburn. There's different shades of hair, so you can see like probably the different ages of the women in the church or the group that put it together.
Wow.
Then we also have an old candle mold.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a primitive mold used in the 18th, 19th century. And this came from the Shemp family. And they used this to make candles before they had electricity.
Right. And they probably made it out of either tallow or beeswax.
Uh-huh. And then as we go through to this part, we have the old bedroom, the old kitchen, living room. We have different quilts that we have featured. We have land run quilts. We have the old buggy.
And what about in here? We've got
our
rocking chair collection.
Yeah, that's our old parlor. That'd be like old rocking chairs. The old couch has the gun cabinet, the kerosene lamps.
Yeah, there's several old rocking chairs that are big, heavy-duty rocking chairs.
And then we also feature our men's and women's section. This is a perm machine.
Yes, we've seen several of those.
Have you seen those?
Oh, yes.
Took 8 or 9 hours to perm their hair.
And looks like you're sitting in an electric chair.
Yes.
And then you've got a lot of other women's items as far as curling irons and curlers.
Mirrors. The old razors, the old hair clippers. Then over here we have like your shaving kit, the old pipe and cigar tobacco
cans,
as well as your ink, like an ink to write letters.
Right. With your little inkwell.
And then we also have a area here for the cobble to make shoes. So it looks like Pinocchio over here, like making shoes, and the elves and the shoemaker. Then we have an old desk for the old school section.
And on the desk, you have an old dictionary that's about 8 inches tall.
Yes.
It's one of the old dictionaries that has, I have no idea where they found that many words, because it's 10 times as thick as the dictionary that you had in school.
Yes, it has the different.
Wow.
Get that.
Just amazing. This place has tons and tons of items.
It's got Webster.
And neat pictures. Then you've got your bedroom set up with the baby carriages and cribs and old sewing machines. Wow.
Then there's a collection of women's hats and scarves, gloves, all the different, you can see what the slips, the old land run clothes. We have, like this is we've got all the way from your land run all the way to about, especially the 20s and 30s, catalogs, different baby girl dresses that were christened, and then Christmas and Easter outfits. And then this is our land run section.
Okay, now we need to stop here.
Okay.
I'm going to interrupt.
Okay.
Land run. You've said that word about 4 times.
Yes.
And I am intrigued.
Okay.
Tell me about the land run.
Okay. In 1893, Oklahoma had the land run in Blackwell, which would be K County, Grant, Noble, Woodward, Woods, all the different counties in our area, northwestern Oklahoma. All the way, it featured all the way from like Alva and Woodward down to Enid, all the way to Perry, all there through there. This is W.S. Prettyman. He was our land run photographer. He made the run of 1893. Here Prettyman is with his buggy in the Guthrie area. So Oklahoma City, Guthrie, Moore, Norman, like Cleveland County, Oklahoma County, all through there, their run was 1889.
How many runs did they have?
There were quite a few. There were land runs. There were also draws. There were also different things featured, like you could do a kind of like a chance, or you could do a draw, a lottery. You could also do a run. Now, 89 and 93 were two of the largest land runs where they shot the gun off and raced for their land. So they lined up.
No, was Oklahoma a territory at this time, or was it a state?
Indian territory. It was not a state.
It was a
We
territory.
were not a state until 1907.
And who decided that these runs were going to happen? Was it the territorial governor?
The federal government. The federal government.
With the Homestead Act.
Yes, yes.
And so let's keep talking here. Okay. So they advertised in the paper maybe and said that they were going to have a land run, and nobody could settle any of these lands until that point in time?
It was all Indian land.
Okay. How happy were the Indians about this?
Some of them were upset, but some of them were happy because some of them were paid for their land. Some of them were paid to move. They did sell their land. Now others were taken out and were not so happy. But there's different stories in history. Some of the people that I've visited with, that their ancestors made the run, some of them have told me that actually the Indians were able to as well try to purchase land if they had the ability to do that.
Okay, so now when they ran, they claimed what, 40 acres?
So they raised 80 acres.
160 acres.
80 acres was $5, and 160 was $10. So
and now you had to pay before you ran?
No, you lined up and you paid $3 for a ticket.
Okay.
And then you lined up on the line, and they shot the gun off in 1893 in Blackwell. They shot the gun off at noon. And we have reenacted the land run in Blackwell 4 times. The last time we did it was in 16. It was at our 125th birthday. Now this is a book where they signed. So they can actually see the book where they signed. And like I said, $5 for 80 acres, $10 for 160.
Now was this already platted out?
Yes.
So they already had places platted out. You just had to figure out how to beat your neighbor there.
Yes. So they shot the gun, they raced, and then you set up camp, and then one of the family members would go back and pay the 5 or the 10 and tell them their number. Everything was given a number. So like if they lived, and so there was they were all plotted out, and so they would come back and say, okay, we claimed space R1, W3 or whatever. And so and then they would take that and go back and they would give them the ticket that was their land. They had 5 years to farm or ranch it. If they didn't, they would lose it, even if they paid the $5 or $10.
Wow.
And we have a monument out front of the museum that shows the majority of the people that made the run in Blackwell and Bremen. We also have an ownership map from the Ballantyne family that had the glass plant. This is our ownership map for them. It shows them who their neighbors were.
Okay.
And shows where they lived. And so there were different sections, different townships, like Blackwell City, Blackwell proper, Lowell, Renfro, different townships, so that they could come in. And that took care of Blackwell, Tonkawa, Bremen, Ponca City, and Newkirk. And then it was registered at the courthouse, which our courthouse in K County is in Newkirk. Oklahoma City, of course, Oklahoma County is Oklahoma City. Guthrie is would be a capital. Woodward is a capital. Alva is in Woods County, and so that's where their courthouse is. Cordell is Washita. So it depended on where your courthouse was. And Blackwell at the time was started by A.J. Blackwell, which he named the town. And he had about 7 children. 3 different wives. So we have history on A.J. Blackwell. We have history on W.S. Prettyman. This is actually him at the top. And then this is also him on the run. And this is his picture that he took of the run that we put on different things. You can find it on
Now, is that an actual
postcards.
photograph?
No, those are copies.
Okay. Oh, well, I meant
The
that is
actual
from an actual photograph.
Yes. The actual photographs are in the Wichita State Library, and also Norman has some of the Prettyman pictures.
And how many people were lined up to do this run? Do you have any idea?
150,000.
150,000.
150,000 people were lined up on this line to go claim land. Was there enough acreage for everybody, or were there just a whole bunch of losers?
I don't know.
Now, a lot of people did probably do the run of 89 and then also run here, because a lot of people have given up their land and given them, resold it to someone, and maybe they moved to another state or another part of Oklahoma. Because the last part that was claimed, here's the different dates, and this also shows the Indian tribes. But like this is the run of 93 up here that shows all the counties: Noble, Kay, Grant, Garfield, Alfalfa, Woods, Woodward, all through there, Major, all through there. Now this part down here is called Big Pasture. Big Pasture was not settled till 1906, and it was sealed bids, like I talked about.
Right.
Okay, and then this is a drawing, kind of like a lottery. Okay, and then this is a run of 1893, and then the Panhandle was 1890, and then like Old Greer was 1892, but 93 was the last formal run. And then this shows where all the tribes were.
No, I knew that they'd had one. I mean, I watched the movie Far and Away, I think.
Yeah.
And they had a reenactment in that movie.
Now this is from Roosevelt. This is from Theodore Roosevelt, signed that this person is from the Holland family in Perry, Oklahoma. And so this was given to us.
Wow.
See, it says Oklahoma, 1893.
And it's an actual certificate.
It's an actual certificate. Here's another one.
Wow. This whole land run thing is just mind-boggling to me, that you have 150,000 people running out to claim 80
and then this
to
one was
160
signed by
acres.
McKinley.
Okay.
President McKinley. And so this is the Kramer family.
Wow.
So see, and then this is a certificate they sent out after everybody had owned their land 100 years, the Holland farm, and it was signed by Governor Walters in 1993. 100 years old.
Wow, and that same family still owns that piece?
Yes, they do. They brought it in not long ago. And then we also have old pictures of Blackwell. There's Hotel Blackwell, which was opened up by A.J. Blackwell. He started Blackwell. He had the first school, the first business, the first church, and the first home. And then he moved to Chelsea and helped start Chelsea. And then in here you'll see like there's an old time bank picture.
Right.
Now this picture over here I was going to show you. This is actually on the front of several different books, and it shows Foster's, and it shows Snow White, the creamery. It shows like, see where they were having like a fair. You can see the Ferris wheel.
Oh, yeah.
And then these other pictures, they're plowing. This is actually where they rode the buggy, the stagecoach came. So there's all these old pictures, and then you go through here into our train room. And so you've got the old train, which also for the run, they rode the horse, they walked, they also came by train. So they a lot of them rode horses to race, but others rode the train and ran to their land. And then they had to go back to turn in their ticket. Some of them walked 30, 40, 50 miles to take their ticket back to the county seat.
Wow.
And then we have a cane collection, a Santa collection, dolls, all kinds of collections that people have had. But our train room's really neat. This is an old train schedule for the Topeka Santa Fe.
Okay.
So that is from 1889. That was effective. This is the rates to the Atchison, Topeka, Santa Fe. And then as you go through here, Blackwell had the Santa Fe, the Frisco, and the Rock Island.
All three of them came
different
through.
railroads came through Blackwell.
Wow.
And so you'll see this is a train room that was given to us by Leroy Jacks. And Leroy loved trains. This is him. And he gave each of his kids and grandkids a little engine or a little train car as well as a railroad tie. And then this is his uniform from World War II.
Okay.
And Leroy won several medals. I have people ask me about Leroy all the time. Every time they traveled, they'd pick up something to add to their train museum.
Huh.
So they had like the Harvey House. We also had the Doodlebug, which would take people from over to like the dog races and the pony races on the other side of the tracks by the foundry and the glass plant. And then it showed, we still have the depot, the Blackwell depot.
Then that's still standing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And then this was on the front of the train that used to be in the park, and it was donated to the museum.
A Baldwin Locomotive Works
Yeah.
in Philadelphia, and it's the brass plate that went on the front.
Front of the
Wow.
train, yeah.
This
And
is
then
really
here's
cool.
the sign from the Eddy train track, which isn't far from here. It's a little small area.
Okay.
And then here is Hardy, Oklahoma, and Uncas, which is the steel trestle, which isn't far from us either.
And is it still standing?
That was still standing. They brought me that picture about 3 years ago.
Wow.
So lots of neat train stuff from Leroy. And then through here's our glass plant, Hazel Atlas glass plant. They made glass kind of like your Vision cookware, or when you go now and you buy like your Kerr jars and things like that. Hazel Atlas made the glass. And on the bottom of the glass, if it's a B, it's from Blackwell, an A from Ada. So each one was given a number.
Okay.
And so, like this is your, like vinegar.
Yeah, there's all kinds
syrup,
of different little.
salt,
You mentioned the
pepper.
Kerr, but you've got lots of other little bottles, like you said, for
Yeah, this
vinegar
is
that has a
all-
little
yeah.
stopper in it. And
Yeah,
all
this
of that
is
kind
all
of stuff.
Hazel Atlas. They also, they made everything from your canning jar to dishes.
Now, did that just turn into the Atlas Glass Company? Because I've seen Atlas before, like for canning jars.
Yeah, this is Hazel Atlas. 3 brothers came to Blackwell and opened up the glass plant, the Ballantyne family.
Okay.
Alex, Robert, and David. And they were also all Masons, so their wives were worthy matrons. So they all, but lots of different things for the town. It was here till 55, and we lost it in the tornado in 55.
Okay, and we're going to get to the tornado.
Yes, and then here's an old dollhouse. We have
Woodworking.
dairy stuff. Yes, we have dairy and farming and ranching, old plows, lots of dairy. We had quite a few dairies in our area.
Do you still have dairies, or most of
There's
those
probably
gone?
a couple, but not as many as there used to be.
Then you've got a saddle shop, it looks like, with
Yes.
harness and leather working tools and all of that.
These are the old newspapers from Blackwell, and then this is our area that we're going to have put together by hopefully February. We cleaned out some of the old Masonic Lodge, so we have pictures of the worthy matrons as well as the Masons. These are some of their formal dresses, so we have a really nice collection of some of the dresses they wore when they were the worthy matron.
Wow.
And then this is our smelter section. The zinc smelter was here till 77. It employed a great number of Blackwell people. It was opened, it only closed 1 year through World War II. It opened in the early 1900s through World War I. It was here, World War II, the Depression, all the way till 77. And they smelted the zinc, and so they would take the zinc and heat it up into the furnace. Here's pictures of the furnace.
Right.
And they put the connies, which are these right here, the connies.
Okay, right.
Like kind of a cement connie. And they put it into the furnace. And here's the kettle. They heated it up in this. These are the zinc balls. And then it went in a cast like this and made your brick. And then that's a piece of sludge left over.
Yeah, that's a nice
And so
brick of zinc.
Yes.
And now, so they mined the zinc here also, or they just smelted it here?
They smelted it here. It came in on the rail cars.
From someplace?
That I don't know.
It just showed up?
It came in on the rail cars, yes. And see, there were
Wow.
3 towers. This is the whistle that they blew at the end of World War II. We have a monument out front for the people that went off to World War II that worked at the smelter. They had reunions until about 2010, 2012. They would have a reunion every year.
Now, this is a big steam whistle, too. This thing's like 5 foot tall.
Yes.
It's a big whistle. I've seen a lot of the smaller ones, but I don't know that I've seen a whistle that big.
And then we also had a flour mill.
Okay.
And we have stuff about the fire. There was a fire in the 50s at the flour mill, and then they rebuilt. And so the flour mill was here till about 2014, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have different samples.
And then why did they shut down?
Just things that move away. I mean,
Wow.
more
So
things
was this
come.
a real strong farming, like wheat area?
Lots of yeah, we do have some wheat, a little bit of milo, lots of cattle, a little bit of oil and gas. There's also, here's an old map. This is kind of unique. This shows like your refinery. Here's the Shikaski River that runs through. And then it shows, this is the layout of the town, which it shows your Cushing refinery, your brick factory, Turvey packing plant, the
You
smelter,
guys had all kinds of stuff here. This place was really kicking.
Globe refinery. Yeah.
And all of the pictures, I notice as I'm looking at the pictures on the wall of the town and that kind of stuff, there was a lot of activity in the streets. It's always full.
Yeah, it was. And this is our sewing section and quilts. This is a land run quilt. We'll go back to the land run again. This is Dora Goodson and Olin. She actually claimed the land.
Okay.
She actually made the run. It was her land.
And so women were allowed to own land at that point in time? Because I know that there was a point in time when the man is who owned the land and the woman, there was a lot of controversy with a lot of that stuff.
Yes. And then this is her worthy matron dress.
Okay.
And then this is an old phone from their home.
Right.
And the old sewing machine.
Singer sewing machine and an old treadle machine.
Yeah, so we've got all those kinds of. Now this machine was bought. She sold her pony to get money for her first child, and she used a sewing machine, and so this is her old-time sewing machine, but she sold her pony so she could make clothes for her first baby.
Wow.
And then we have another sewing machine that they used to make, one of them made like parachutes.
Oh.
She sold, I can't remember, she and her family went together because her husband needed parachute. And so she started making parachutes and sending them to different companies.
For the war effort?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's pretty fascinating.
And this is a leather machine for belts and boots.
And let's drop back again and talk a little bit more about this quilt run that you were talking about. I've in my travels in lots of different places, I've seen the barn quilts out. They're not actual quilts. They're more like paintings.
It's a piece of wood painted. Yes, it's a
and
painting.
they stick them on the
barns
or
buildings,
houses.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there was probably 10 of them on my way into town.
We
now,
have
what's the
about
significance?
90 of them.
You got 90 of them here?
There's about 90 in Blackwell, yes.
Wow.
That's part of the geocache. And like I said, the museum has 4. There's one at Star Lumber. There's 2 across the street. Most of the schools, the different businesses in town, parks, the hospital has one, City Hall has one, the fairgrounds have 2. There's some out in the county, like the county barn has some. Goodson Ranch has one. Glenny Farms has one.
And they can pick up the maps from you.
The maps, yep, we
But
have
what's
the maps
the significance of that? What started the
it was
barn quilt
like
thing?
The women would quilt inside, and some of the men would paint a barn quilt and put it on their barn.
This was 50 years ago in the 1800s?
Yeah, like late 1800s, early 1900s.
Okay.
Now, I did have a man come in that does the barn quilt trail. And he said, actually, the barn quilts became famous again during World War II.
Okay.
When they were hiding some of the children, they would, if there was a quilt on their home, they knew it was safe to go there. I also had a person tell me that during slave trade times, the barn quilts were used.
For the same purpose.
For the same purpose. They knew it was safe to come to that home because there was a barn quilt.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
There's many different stories. When I first heard about it when I went to the Oklahoma Museum Conference. And so we came back and I let some kids make some small ones that summer. And then it got passed on to our board president, and our board president passed it on to Cindy Ord, who is president of Top of Oklahoma Barn Quilt Trail.
Okay.
And so she has made over 90 for the trail, and there have been many, many people that have made, I'm assuming she's made probably close to 300, helped people make them. And so Blackwell has quite a few, and they started the geocaching about 1.5 years ago.
Now let's talk a little bit about the geocaching, just because there's probably people that don't understand what that is. And I was involved in the geocaching for a while. And what it is people take things and hide them in kind of plain sight, but not really. So if you're walking across the bridge, there may be a magnetic key holder or something that has a register in it on the back side of the bridge where you're walking, and you can find by using GPS tracking.
Yep.
You can follow your GPS, you can find it, and then you can sign your name and log it in. But some people get really extravagant, like out in the country or maybe in some of the flower beds or something like that. You may find like a coffee can that has a bunch of really just trinkets. You know, there might be a dime in there, or there might be other little trinkets, plastic toys or whatever. And you can take one, but you're supposed to leave one also. And so these things end up going all over the nation with the people that are hardcore geocachers.
Yes. When we did it, we put thimbles. The museum donated, I think I donated about 60 thimbles so that they could put some of those in the geocaching. We also had an event where they came to the museum and they got to learn a little bit about the museum. We're a stop for a point. In Blackwell, they can go eat, get gas, come to the museum, and I have a stamp for them. And so they pick up the map, and I can give them a stamp. They tour the museum, and then that helps them get their coin. Some of them that are a little more into it will pay $5 or $10 so they can have, a bigger amount of clues so they can do the next level of the geocaching. Some people just like to see the quilts and take pictures.
And the thing that I really liked about geocaching, just for people that seem intrigued with this, is it's basically a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Like the treasure hunts you did when you were a kid, all except you don't have somebody standing there saying, you're getting warmer, you're getting, now you're cold. It's it's one of those things that it takes you to some really beautiful places, because somebody will go out in the boonies who knows where and hide something, and in order to go geocache it, you've got to drive out in the boonies to find it, and you can end up overlooking
water.
You could end up looking at all kinds of really interesting places that a lot of people don't go to.
See a lot of treasures. Now this is our toy area, and we have like your old time marbles. We also have marble shooters. We have the old Sippy zither, which is like a harp.
Right.
And then we have an old football game. We also have corn husk dolls, which are made out of corn husk, and they played with them. They were popular in the U.S., linked to American culture, done like for the early settlers. We also have vintage sawdust dolls. That was
Sawdust
yes,
dolls.
like the dad would make furniture or something, and with the sawdust left over, they would put that in and make a doll. We have a soldier and a clown.
Wow.
And so it was
I don't know
used-
that I've ever seen a sawdust
Yeah.
doll. And then a lot of the old cast iron type toys and some of that kind of stuff too.
Jack in the Box, the old
Yeah.
dolls. Here's a top.
Yep.
And then we also have like your old skates also
Right.
through here. So there's lots of different toys. The old fire truck ladder. So there's lots of different toys and things. Pogo stick.
Now that's a pogo stick. I don't know that I've ever really seen one like that. It's almost got like a tennis ball on top of a post and then the spring
Yep.
step-on thing on the bottom instead of having like handlebars. That one looks like it'd be a bit more of a challenge, and if you fell down, it
You'd
kind
be
of
in
stick you.
trouble. Then we have
Yes.
we have a Lincoln section. This came from the old high school that was across the street. And then we also have a Lincoln chair, which was given to us by a family. And their family lived near Lincoln when he was running for president.
Okay.
And the gentleman took him to and from his law office while he was running. And this is the chair he sat in their home. And
Really?
they passed it down through the generations.
Wow.
So
So
it's
Lincoln
an-
actually sat in this
Yes,
chair.
he did. Yes, it's been passed down through 4 generations, I believe.
It's amazing what you find when you're going to these
that
museums.
neat?
I mean, I was at a museum in Oregon, the Tillamook Air Museum, and there's pieces of the Hindenburg. I didn't know there were pieces of the
that's
Hindenburg. I thought it was gone. And he had pieces sitting there, and you're going, what are these pieces of the Hindenburg doing in Tillamook, Oregon?
Here's some more history through here. We've got like the old clocks. These are dockets behind you, assessment rolls, voting records.
Now, how come those aren't in the courthouse?
These are copies given to the museum.
Okay. I was
They
going to
all
say, because I
went
thought
digital,
most of that stuff...
But they went digital, so they're,
Oh.
yes.
So you've got all the paper ones.
Yes, now this is our tornado room, the
Okay.
1955
Before
Blackwell
we get
tornado.
started with the tornado
Yes,
room, can I
yes.
take a quick sponsor break?
Yes, of course.
Okay, now we're in the tornado room.
Okay. Yes,
So-
this is our tornado room. We've got the old newspapers from that tornado. We also have a video of the last of the responders. We have actually a tornado that shows the different colors. You know, they talk about the sky
Right.
being blue and then purple, and then it turns pink and then purple, and then it makes the tornado. So the light on this starts out blue, and then
Okay.
it turns pink and then purple. We may
Okay.
have to give him water. Whoop, we're out of water. Can you grab us some water? Okay.
Well, let's talk about this tornado.
You can hear the wind.
Yeah, you can hear the
That's
wind.
kind of what it was like. But here is old pictures. Blackwell had the tornado, the timeline. It starts out May 25th in the afternoon. There were storms, and then through the evening, more storms, and then by 9:27, everything is gone.
At night.
Yes. So,
And so
yes,
how big of a tornado was this?
F5.
Which means
Killed 23 people.
winds were going between 261 and 318 miles
Yes.
an hour. And
Yes.
this was at 9:30 at night?
By then it was over. Yeah, it started, the big amount started at 9:01 and went through 9:27. The tornado was gone. And then it dissipated, and then it reformed and joined another tornado and hit Udall, Kansas at 10:30.
Wow.
And we lost 23 people. So out front of the museum, we've raised money to get monuments. So
Okay.
as you're walking up the front, you can see the list of 23 names and then pictures of different structures that were damaged. We lost over 100 homes. The glass plant was lost. Park School and Riverside School was lost. Damage to the foundry, damage to Turvey packing plant. This is a one-of-a-kind piece of glass from the glass plant.
Okay.
This was in a press and blow machine, and it would have been an olive jar. And the lady went back and they destroyed everything there because they didn't want any copies or anything inferior. So she took this out of her machine. And so this is a one-of-a-kind piece of glass. And then this shows like your caster for furniture, cups, glasses, canning jars, all kinds of things. But this is some of the piece. This is an old insulator.
Right.
And then this is from the foundry. So there was damage to Hazel Atlas, the Acme Foundry, and Turvey's. And then damage to schools, homes, churches. The Lutheran church was damaged. This is a pass that was signed by the mayor to let them come back into the area after the tornado. This is Hamlin's house. They had Hamlin's Chevrolet, Ray Hamlin, and this is their home. You can see the
Not much left.
way it looks. This is a map that shows the path it took and where our casualties lived. We have pictures of our casualties. One lady actually lost her grandchild. She was holding her 11-month-old grandson, and he was pulled out of her arms.
Wow.
Then-
that had to be something
Yes.
to live with.
Here is Pamela Coyle. She was at her friend's house, and she died later, 2 years later, from broom straw being in her head.
From what?
Broom straw. A piece of a broom went through the back of her head.
It drove it through her skull.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it did.
That is unbelievable.
This is Julius Bartels. He was a World War I decorated veteran who lived out in the country, and he was blown. They found him along the fence line. So there's different stories. The one most unique is probably this one. Her name is Rosa Stiles, and she had just moved here and had graduated high school, her and her husband, and he worked for the smelter and the foundry. And she had a little boy named Philip. She put him down in the cellar and went back up to what they believe shut the cave, and had told them where she was. She put a mattress over him, saved his life, and she went up to pull the door, and it got her, and she was killed. And so what is interesting is one of the gentlemen on our board, his name is Loren Valentine, and he did the cleanup, so you'll hear him on the video. But he found her, and he did not know until 2020 who that was, until we did research and found out exactly who that had to have been by the ages of the victims. And so he'll talk about that in the video. We have pictures, a damaged wall. There are items on here that were from the tornado. This is a car tag from Blackwell. We were 6th in the largest counties in Oklahoma. So that's why there's a 6. And then it says 55. Here's the broom straw that we put here for Pamela. We have a clock at the time. There's different things like the glass plant,
All
the brick
represented
factory,
on here.
an old sewing machine, book from that time frame, screen door wire, things like that. This is an actual pan from the 50s, and we ran over this with a car
in order to
get it to even look similar. So they don't make things like that now.
Right.
But Life magazine, Blackwell was featured in Life magazine. We were also featured in the Postal Review. We were also featured in the Tulsa World, the Enid, Oklahoma City.
And now, this was the first tornado
big tornado for Blackwell, yes.
Okay, and this was the first one that got national coverage, or?
Probably, yes, for Blackwell it was, yes.
Okay.
Woodward was in 47 and Blackwell was in 55.
Okay.
So the big tornado in Woodward was in 1947. And then the big one for Blackwell was in 55.
And again, we're talking about winds of 261 to 318 miles an hour.
And oddly enough, I found this, but in the newspaper on May 22nd, this is what it was in the paper. The Red Cross Bloodmobile will be here Wednesday the 25th from 11 to 4:15. Help now may save a life. It could be yours.
Wow.
So it'd be interesting. That was the day of the tornado. This was the Sunday paper before. And it shows in the paper all the people that were hurt in the tornado, killed in the tornado. Then a couple days later, it shows their status in the hospital, where they were. So it's just interesting that it would be interesting to know how many people gave blood that then they were in the tornado. Yeah, they needed it, or their family needed it. We also have a military room. It goes World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea.
Oh, and you've got lots of uniforms.
This is Julius that was killed in the tornado.
Okay.
This is him. We have all different. Now this is unique. We're about to go into Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
And this is Blackwell's casualty. It was the first casualty of World War II. Robert Markley, and he was from Blackwell and Nardin area, and he was killed on the runway.
Oh, really?
Yes, and he was the first casualty of Pearl Harbor. Kay County lost 5 men
in Pearl Harbor.
In Pearl Harbor on that day.
Wow.
So yeah, we did a big veterans display where we lined the yard with 500 flags. And had displays from World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
You've got a flight jacket with Miss America on it that's all leather.
Yes, this is Bonniewell's. This belonged to Bonniewell. And then we also have Dunaway's. He flew with the Thunderbirds.
Okay.
And was a colonel in the Air Force. And his brother was killed in Pearl Harbor, which is why he joined the service, because he lost his brother Dunaway in Pearl Harbor. And then we have ration books. We have old pictures, helmets, duffel bags.
These rations or ration books and coupons are of an intrigue to me also. It's just amazing what they went through.
The old cot. We've got like the old cot and the old books. We have scrapbooks from people that had letters from their relatives. We have a flag, the 13 colony flag.
I was going to say, you've got a flag with 13 stars on it.
Yep, that's the old 13 colony.
Now, where did you acquire that?
It was donated to the museum. Yeah.
This is authentic.
Yes, it was, and it was repieced before they framed it. But it was passed down through generations. So, and then
you don't see those.
This is the official roster of the 189th. And then from 41, we also have, these are the men that went to the service when this picture was done. This is our armory, and that picture was done by Cussler, and that was actually the Blackwell Armory, the people leaving in the 189th, and then this is the men.
Wow.
So we have that. And then this is right here is Kennedy with the astronauts.
Okay.
And this gentleman right here is Loren Valentine. And he is our board member.
Oh, really?
He was Secret Service for JFK. And he also did the tornado cleanup, and who found the lady in the tornado.
Right.
That's the same man. So
wow, he's kind of been all over.
He has. He was Border Patrol after that. So very highly educated man, did quite a bit for our country. We have a fire and police room. We also have the old newspaper, the Rock Record. This is #1, featured column #1, volume #1, the very first newspaper for Blackwell.
Really?
Old typewriters. Here's the old DOS computer with the floppy disk.
Right.
Yes, and then this is our fire and police room.
And you've got lots of different fire and police-oriented stuff. You've got one of the old throw-it fire extinguishers that would suck all the oxygen out of the room.
And then this used to be on the top of City Hall, the rain gauge.
Oh,
and
is
see,
that
that's
what that
how
is?
they recorded it. They would record on the little thing and save it.
Okay. And you got some old ladders in here and some old fire uniforms and boots and masks, oxygen supplies or air supplies.
The hose connections.
One of the old
pot.
jump out of the window round thingies that everybody held.
The parachute, yes.
That is cool too. Just lots
And
of
then
neat
this
stuff.
is our police chief, George Morgan. And then we have different times through here. This is actually Prettyman took these pictures. Our Landron photographer, W.S. Prettyman. And Prettyman was also mayor of Blackwell.
Okay.
He was our 5th mayor. And then this is the bullets from this gun from here, from this gentleman when they killed.
What
shot
did he
him.
do wrong?
He was robbing the bank.
Oh. Is he a bank robber that any of us would know, or he was just a local
Well, no.
guy that
let's
decided
see.
to be bad?
Yes, he was, and he's in the Gunfighters edition.
Oh, the Gunfighters edition of...
This is Buck McGregor
Okay.
and Ben Cravens. And so this is a rare photograph of a manhunt of the posse. And here's the shack where he hid, from which they fired on the 2 gunmen and flushed them out.
Okay, and this is the Old Time Life series that you see in antique stores a lot. I've got the whole set at home. I'm going to have to go home and read this.
This is Alfred Lund. And so this is, and then there's a whole article about Lund and McGregor. Alfred Lund was the early day peace officer that flushed him out. And of course, then Prettyman took these pictures. So it was kind of neat. Bad day at Blackwell. And there's a...
and it's on page 116 of, did you say it was a gunfighter?
Gunfighters
Of the
edition.
Gunfighter edition of the Time Life
books, yeah.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
I'm telling you. See, here he is right here.
You are telling me.
And then we have a badge from J.C. Robbins, 1893, the night watchman for Blackwell.
Wow.
The first policeman in Blackwell.
And now, when did Oklahoma become a state?
1907.
1907. So
November.
it was still a territory at that point in time.
Yeah, it was still Oklahoma territory. Now this is a courting chair. The man sits on one side and the lady on the other, and they can play games, and they have to rock together.
Yes, they
If
do.
you don't
Okay, now
rock
let me
together.
describe this chair. This is 2 rocking chairs that are sitting with one guy's facing one way and the lady's facing the other, and the arm of the chair is held together to where they're offset. Their feet are sitting offset, and they've got a platform on the bottom of the rocker to where their feet sit on that, and they can rock back and forth, but there's a round table in the middle of the joined arms that can slide back and forth. So, like, they could play games, or they could do something else other than playing checkers or dominoes. Would work
they
real
could
well
have
while you were
tea.
rocking.
Right, they can have tea or have something to drink, sit there and visit.
And it still kept them from getting too intimate.
That's right.
Because they had that arm right there in
That's
between
right,
them.
in between them. The courting chair.
Wow. I've never seen a chair like that. That is just really, really cool.
And now this part of the building used to be the Red Cross. So the doorway here, there was parking, and they could come in and do blood drives and disaster relief. We turned it into our music room and our doll room. So we have old pianos and organs,
You've got
stained
like
glass
6
windows.
old pianos. You've got a couple of those, what do they call these pianos that are like grands? They're box grands, or what is that what they're called, as box grands?
Yes.
And then you've got some regular pianos in here, upright pianos. You've got a couple of pump organs that had the old bellows in them that you would pump.
And then we have the gramophone.
Yes. Just lots of really cool
And the
stuff in here.
Victrolas, black and white TVs.
And an old cabinet TV with a record player in one side that has to be the 1950s, early 50s.
Yeah, and then there's a black and white on the top where it says
Right,
I Love Lucy.
Lucy. Wasn't that a good show?
Yes. And then we've got your old, like the old dresses and capes. And then this is our doll room.
Oh, wow.
A doll collection. This lady made all these dolls, Sammy Davis Jr., Phyllis Diller, President Carter, Barbara Streisand. Then the early day dolls, fancy dolls, all kinds of different.
And now she made these.
She made these dolls and entered them into like the fairs. Oklahoma State Fair, Grant County, Kay County Fair, and won blue ribbons. And then she passed some of them on to her family and then some of them on to the museum. But she collected dolls as well as made them.
And this is a collection. How many dolls do you have in here?
Too many.
Too many. We're not gonna start counting.
We're not gonna count. Too many. Way too many.
There is a lot of dolls.
Lots of dolls. But that was her collection, and she loved to sew and be creative. So, hey, we have it now. So, and then we have artwork from several different people that have been from Blackwell. This is different art. Here's a painting that one of our loyal people did of Deer Creek. Shows the old Deer Creek downtown.
Okay.
In like the probably 1930s, 40s.
Wow, you just have so much
Lots
stuff
of
here.
stuff. Yes, and we have a Native American room, a doctor room, pharmacy, music stuff, school room.
We missed all that. That's okay.
Well, there's a lot of collections.
There is a lot of collections.
There's a lot to see.
This is just absolutely amazing. I'm so glad I stopped.
In the summer, we do hands-on for the kids, where the parents can look around and the kids can do like coloring pages or play with the trains or Lincoln Logs, Tinker Toys.
Wow.
Different things. And then we do things for Pearl Harbor, Veterans Day. We also have events in the spring, a bean feed. We decorate for Christmas, elf hunt, nutcrackers on parade. We do things 24/7, I tell you.
I was going to say, and your husband doesn't get drug into any of this, does he?
Oh,
I can tell by the smile on his face that he's standing over here going, what else do we have to do? Yes. This is so interesting.
Really lots of neat collections.
You do. So you guys are on the web. Do you have
we have a Facebook
gallery?
page.
You got a Facebook page?
We have a Facebook page.
And what is it called?
Top of Oklahoma Historical Society Museum.
Is that all?
Yeah, that's
Top of Oklahoma Historical Society Museum.
Yes. And this is our Native American room. It's a little darker in here because to keep the artifacts, this is Cherokee dress.
Okay.
It's got the beadwork from
that's
the Cherokee.
authentic?
Yes. And then this is the headdress and the shield of the chief. And then also we have artwork by Alice Souligny, that is Cherokee. We also have stuff on the 101 Ranch.
And what's the story on the 101 Ranch?
The 101 Ranch is outside of Ponca City, and they did rodeos, things like that. And, lots of different actors would come through, and they would ride and rope, and had different like food. They would haul in trucks to bring in all kinds of food so they could cook, and they'd have like bonfires and rope cattle and have clowns, all kinds of different things.
And Oklahoma, I've noticed, had some of the old famous cowboys in the area.
Paul Huska has
Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson, yes.
Okay, and there was another one in that town I called you from. Now I can't remember what the name of it was.
Paul Huska?
No, Bartlesville.
Bartlesville. Linda would know. I might have to go ask Linda. Will Rogers was in Claremore.
Claremore, yeah.
Yeah, and boy, I'm going to have to go ask Linda.
Something Mix. Tom Mix.
Tom Mix. Yes, that's who it is. Tom Mix.
Yeah.
He's got a museum down
Yes.
there. Everything was closed when I was coming through, so we didn't get to see some of that, which I would have liked to have.
This is Prettyman's pictures.
Okay.
These are the
Of
Native
Native
Americans.
Americans at
Yes.
that time. He was pretty prolific with his
Yeah,
photography,
see
wasn't
that?
he?
We've got White Eagle. Also, this is Chief White Eagle.
Wow.
And then you've got maps with all the different tribes. We have a red-tailed hawk, owls, and different skulls, the bonfire, the bobcat.
Yeah.
So
You just and
lots,
a nice.
and then in here we have the old-time doctors and pharmacy, your glasses, the
Oh, wow.
dentist. So yeah.
She's got a cabinet
Right there.
here with the old optical examination where they do the little glass flip out thing, but this is old. This
Yes.
is really cool.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
It is.
All the different eyeglasses. And then we have the pharmacy, we have the country doctors, quite a bit for the hospital, examination table, the old wheelchair, early day artificial limbs,
Prosthetic leg.
prosthetic,
yes.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this
This
is
is-
actually a skull. Isn't that cool? I mean,
Yeah.
there's some neat stuff.
There is yeah. In order to go through this museum, somebody would need to really spend a lot of time and walk and look and walk and look and
Yep. Or they may decide, there's one thing they are dying to see, and
Well,
they
I
say,
don't know
"Hey,
what the
Melissa,
one-
where is that?" And I can take them right to it.
I don't know what the one thing would be
Well, there's a lot of neat
because there
stuff.
is just too many one things.
There's a lot of really neat stuff.
This
There
has
really
really
is.
been fascinating. Well, I really appreciate you making yourself
That's
available.
We're
Again,
glad
we're
you
in
came.
Blackwell, Oklahoma,
Oklahoma.
and it's right in the middle of town. You can't miss this museum because it's the coolest looking building in town. In fact, it's probably the coolest looking building I've seen in about 20 towns. So it is just a really nice building. It's super nice people,
Well, good.
knowledgeable people, and so much to see and so much to do. I thank you so much for spending this time with us.
We're glad you came. Send
Me
all your
too.
friends. Send all your friends.
And I finish out by saying the world is full of wonder. People need to get out, explore, see what's out here. And everybody have a wonder-filled day.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?